In the bitter cold of January 1945, deep inside a prisoner of war camp in the American Midwest, a group of German soldiers stood in silence. They were gathered in a recreation hut, not for a game, but around a long table covered with American newspapers. The soft rustle of paper was the only sound, but for these men, captured during the collapse of the Western Front, it was louder than any explosion. One headline stopped them in their tracks. It criticized a high-ranking American general by name for a strategic decision. The paper wasn't a secret underground publication. It was a mainstream American newspaper, available for anyone to read. For these soldiers, this was more shocking than any weapon they had ever faced. Think about where they came from. In Nazi Germany, the press was an instrument of the state. It celebrated victories, erased defeats, and turned generals into myths. To question leadership publicly was an act of treason. The idea that a nation at war would allow its own military to be criticized was completely alien. They had been taught that such openness was a sign of weakness, a path to chaos and collapse. Yet here, in the heart of enemy territory, they were witnessing the exact opposite. The United States was fighting a massive global war, yet it upheld a press protected by the First Amendment. Journalists embedded with troops sent back dispatches that were sometimes unflattering. Congress held hearings questioning military planning. The American public wasn't shielded from the difficult realities of war. They were part of the conversation. This wasn't a secret. U.S. Army records show that POW camps regularly provided newspapers, following the rules of the Geneva Convention. But what American officials likely underestimated was the profound ideological shock this would cause. The German soldiers expected propaganda designed to demoralize them. Instead, they found a nation that was self-critical, a nation that pointed its harshest criticism inward. This created a powerful contrast. They had been told that discipline required silence and that morale depended on a carefully controlled version of the truth. But America was clearly winning the war, all while allowing this open debate. It simply didn't make sense. In interrogation summaries from the National Archives, German prisoners repeatedly expressed their disbelief. One officer is recorded as saying that in Germany, writing such an article would result in immediate arrest. Another observed that American soldiers seemed unafraid of authority in ways unknown to us. This wasn't defiance. It was deep, genuine confusion. The entire ideological foundation they had built their lives on was beginning to crack. The symbol of this revelation was the humble newspaper itself. Each rustling page represented not just an abundance of paper and ink, but an abundance of ideas. While their own country rationed truth, America seemed to print it in excess. They saw it in the behavior of their captors. They watched American guards openly discuss articles that were critical of their own commanders. They saw soldiers reading editorials and arguing about strategy with no fear of punishment. No secret police arrived to confiscate the dissenting papers. Authority was present, but it was not absolute. This simple, daily reality was a powerful lesson. For many of these men, this experience forced a painful reassessment of what strength truly meant. They had always believed that unity required silence and that dissent was a fatal weakness. But America's ability to tolerate and even encourage criticism while maintaining its war effort suggested something else entirely: a deep-seated confidence. These newspapers became more than just reading material. They were living proof that American power didn't rely on illusions. The country could withstand scrutiny, debate, and disagreement, and still mobilize millions of soldiers, outproduce its enemies, and win a world war. This balance of freedom and strength was something they had never imagined possible. As the weeks turned into months, this understanding deepened. The prisoners started asking their guards questions, not with hostility, but with genuine curiosity. How could a leader tolerate being criticized? Why did soldiers speak so freely? Why did citizens trust institutions that openly admitted their own mistakes? The answers weren't found in lectures or propaganda pamphlets. They were embedded in the daily life of the camp, in the continued circulation of newspapers, and the noticeable absence of fear. By the time the war ended, many of these German POWs returned home with more than just memories of their defeat. They carried with them a profound lesson about the nature of information and power. In interviews conducted after the war, former soldiers frequently mentioned America's free press as one of the most shocking discoveries of their time in captivity. It challenged their view not only of their enemy, but of their own country's past. And this story has a lasting legacy. In the years that followed, West Germany rebuilt itself as a democracy. embracing principles that once seemed dangerous: a free media, public accountability, and institutional criticism. The seeds for that transformation were sown in many places, but for some they were planted in the quiet of a POW camp, where a simple newspaper revealed that a society confident enough to criticize itself is often the strongest of all. They learned that the rustle of paper, which once seemed so insignificant, could be a symbol of resilience and trust. In the end, what they lost was not their belief in discipline, but their belief in fear. And what they discovered was a quieter, more powerful truth: that freedom, when protected, can be the most formidable force of all. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more hidden stories from history. See you next time.